Hey everybody, welcome. Just gonna get it out of the way. This is a review stream, and these streams are usually pretty unorthodox. Yes, it is all just going to be me looking at a spreadsheet. Maybe I'll leave this shark in the corner. And this time I've decided I will be doing webcam. But that's all you're getting, and I know that might be a little lame or a little boring to some people. I enjoy doing these streams because it feeds my, like, obsessive, compulsive side of my brain. Because this is a list of all the games that I have streamed so far. We're, like, coming up on 600 strong here, I think. Something like that, yeah. 582, and that's not including a couple games I recently played. Hold on. I'm gonna turn on my webcam, and then I'm gonna snort. But I'm gonna mute the snort so you guys can see me snort, but not hear it. Okay, there you go. So you guys are gonna get to see my lovely face and my new big hair, in the corner here, because I figured, why not? Of all the streams to do a webcam for, this seems one of the most appropriate, because there's really not a lot else going on visually. So, yeah, you get to see my delightful, ugly face here. Yes, I'm fat, I know. But all it's gonna be, currently there's backing music, but for the rest of the stream there is not going to be, backing music. I am going to listen to music and or ASMR on my headphones, but I'm gonna have it muted for you guys. The idea is that, and you know, it's too hot, and there's clothes underneath this. I'm gonna take off my iconic robe. I'm wearing a Vine Sauce shirt. Dumb. Cringe. But the idea is that you all can put music in your own ears and listen to whatever you want in the background. This is meant to be kind of like a podcast-esque thing where you can just you can just watch or listen to this in the background while you're doing something else. Maybe you're doing dishes. I like to listen to videos while I do dishes, personally, or while I do other chores. And I'm gonna try, a lot of the time I have issues where I try to constantly fill the dead air because I feel weird that there's, like, no audio going on behind me, but sometimes I'm gonna try to calm down this stream, and I'm gonna try to make it so that I just take a breather every once in a while. So let me just get my music set up here. Okay. Currently I'm partaking in my selections from the Omori soundtrack, which are on the Grapefruits Jams playlist. But you guys can't hear it. Here, I'll give you a glimpse. Okay, that's all you get. So this is my list. Today we're gonna have a lot of games that I don't even really remember that well. So, I might have to look back and refer to my own VODs to just remind myself a little bit of some of these games. I've already kind of done that, so I shouldn't have to do it too much. Some of these, like, Genesis games, I'm gonna have very little to say about. We're in sort of a lull period between, like, a bunch of real games, or at least a smattering of real games, and then we got all these, like, there was a bunch of arcade games and stuff. Those were fun to review, but then we got all these, like, random ones, and then at the bottom I've got all these series. So we got, like, every Sonic game I've streamed, every Metal Slug game, every Chex Quest, every King's Field, Dark Souls, FromSoft, Pajama Sam, PopCap games, Street Fighter, etc. So, first of all, though, for whatever reason, I constantly lament that I did this, but I decided for whatever reason to put Nintendo games at the start. Just because there were so many of those, and I was, like, sorting the list, and I was like, Okay, I'm going to put all the Mario games together. Okay, I'm going to put all... I might as well put Wario games next to it. Okay, I might as well put, like, Yoshi games next to it. Okay, I might as well put Paper Mario, and so on and so forth. And it just lumped together until it was like, there's a whole Nintendo segment at the beginning here. So whenever I stream a new... Like, a lot of this I'm going through chronologically, but this one... I keep adding, like, whenever I play a new Nintendo game, I add it to this part of the list. So we're going to do Wario Land 4 first. Yes, it's, like, unfair that I have the recency bias on some of these Nintendo games, but whatever. And I'm going to try to go kind of fast. Like, I'm not trying to rush, but sometimes I take way too long on these reviews. And really, if you want my full feelings on a game, you can watch the stream of it, if you would like. But Wario Land 4, fantastic game. I think it just it doesn't put the other Wario Lands to shame, necessarily. As you can see, there's an arc of, first Wario Land was a 3, Virtual Boy was a 4, then 2 and 3 was a huge jump up in quality. 3 is one of my personal favorite platformers. There's definitely nostalgia bias in there. Did you play Wario Land 4 on an actual GBA? I did originally, but when I streamed it, no fucking way. I emulated the shit out of that. Oh, I see why you're asking that. I see now why you're asking that. Yeah, no, let's fix that. I wonder if it says that in the actual... It probably says that in the actual list, too. Yeah, good catch. So, first off... Oh yeah, and I'm giving it a number grade, and I'm giving it a recommendation. Whether or not I recommend something. So... It's not meant to be like an objective ranking of quality. It's meant to just sort of be... The number is like how much I personally enjoyed the game. So we're gonna plow through these, hopefully, and get to the part where there's actual games that people recognize. Anyway, Wario Land 4, it's a great game, great soundtrack. The visuals look very clean. It's a huge step up in both those regards from Wario Land 3, which is already a pretty great game. This music, I've got like very active music going on in my ears right now. I need something a little more mellow. It's the fucking Space Boyfriend fight theme. I might actually end up just listening to ASMR. Anyway, great visuals, great soundtrack. This is another one of those games like WarioWare, where they understood the limitations of the GBA and worked with them to make something really special. Like this is one of those games where GBA compression actually sounds really nice. Like there's some tracks with vocals in them in this game that just sound amazing, and in part due to the compression of the GBA, which is nice. The gameplay is very smooth. It feels great. All the Wario Lands, I mean, no, not all the Wario Lands, but like Wario Land 3 and 2, they both feel pretty good to control. This one, they just like amplified everything that felt good about those games. I think the way I described this game was just what a fucking like treat. Like, if you've played the previous Wario Land games, these are an amazing treat to enjoy, to be relished, because it basically takes everything that the previous games did and does it better. Like, not a huge amount better, but at least slightly better. And it's on a console that actually looks good. Like, Game Boy games and the Virtual Boy, they're not known for their visual fidelity. Whereas Wario Land 4 is very vibrant, looks cute. These games have a weird vibe where they're like cute ugly, that somehow works. It's like Wario is like the disgusting ugly man running through these cute worlds, which is it's a great dichotomy. And I just like all the levels. They're great. They got fun little puzzles. I like all the little, like when you find a purple pipe and you go down into that room that those puzzle rooms that have like just one very specific thing that you need to figure out. Those are usually pretty satisfying. There's a couple slightly frustrating parts of the game, like the bosses they can be a little bit of an ass sometimes. It's worth noting that when I streamed this, originally I played it on normal mode, but when I streamed it, I played it on hard mode. And then there's also very hard mode, which I definitely can't recommend. Hard mode, I also can't recommend, but it's not because it's like shatteringly difficult or anything. It just changes like the amount of health that you start the level with, and it also changes the a couple of the locations of the treasures have been made very stupid. And you guys saw, if you watched my streams, you saw me like mauling about this. Some of the one of the treasures in particular in one of the levels is just in the most fucking dumbass spot ever. Like they've been moved to be more difficult, but it's just hidden behind like a random fucking Metroid wall, unmarked wall, which I thought was very stupid. So, but otherwise, I think it gives you like less time to beat the bosses and spawns you with less health. Those parts really didn't add much to the game. Like they weren't that much of like a satisfying challenge. I didn't really feel any increase in difficulty at all, honestly, in those regards. I think there was maybe one time that like I spawned into a level and got hit a bunch of times and then died, but it didn't really matter because then I could just easily reset the level and make up that lost time. And I said it, like I said, it's the amount of health that you spawn in with, not the total amount of health. So you can just heal up. It starts you with like half health, but you can just heal it up anyway, so whatever, who cares? This game is great. I give this an 8.5. Similar to a lot of Mario games, it doesn't actually... It's not like high art, but it is an exceptionally competently designed game. Cool dynamic music in Wario Land 4. There's just a ton of things that affect how the music sounds. Like in the previous games, when you got hit by fire, it would play that little that little jingle. But in this one, it just makes the music like faster, which I kind of enjoy. And one of my favorite little details is that for a second I was like, I gave it a 9. What? When you crouch, the music slows down like almost imperceptibly and it makes me laugh like every time I notice it. So when you do like a dash and then slide underneath something and he like grabs his hat, the music will just slightly go like a tiny little bit, and it makes me giggle, and it's a great touch. I think it's exceptionally fun. So great game. Definitely recommend Wario Land 4 if you're not looking to like play through the whole series. 3 is great. 2 is cool. 2 and 3 both have annoying parts, but 4 is definitely the most like digestible one where you can just hop right in and have fun. And it's just got a great vibe overall. Okay, Rhythm Heaven Fever Repainted. This is going to be hard to rank because it is a mod. It's like a shitpost mod. I would have to go ahead and say, as funny as it was, it is, of course, just a straight-up detriment. Like, it is worse than Rhythm Heaven Fever, and I would even go as far as to say that I would not recommend playing it. Just watch an epic, funny YouTuber play it instead. Like, there's really no reason for you to play it yourself. It's just, like, look up the videos of, like, the different mini-games and be like, haha, that's interesting. The actual experience of playing it is just distinctly less enjoyable than normal Rhythm Heaven Fever, which is a 9.5, not quite a 10. But that was one where I think I gave it a 10, and then I, like, calmed down and gave it a 9.5, but it's, like, right on the cusp. This was described as a 2016 core game where, a lot of the jokes are very dated, and I know like 2016 was not really that long ago, but it still comes across very, very dated. I'm switching to different. I'm turning off music and going to ASMR just because I need something in my ears, but I don't want music. It distracts me. I'm also gonna snort again. Watch. Okay. So, yeah, Rhythm Heaven Fever Repainted. It was funny and all. A lot of effort went into making it. Not only are the visuals redone, but there's also the songs have like remixes, but none of the remixes of the songs are actually like good to listen to. They're just mildly entertaining and funny. Honestly, I struggled to find things to say while I was streaming this because a lot of it is just sitting there, like there's not really much meaningful stuff. A lot of it is just sitting there going, haha, that's funny. I get that reference, or haha, that's so like cringy and weird. But there were, I think the best part of this was the remixes. Like maybe if anything, if you really feel the need to play this, and by the way, you need to do this whole like hokey thing to like extract your copy of Rhythm Heaven Fever and like apply the repaint to it. It's really weird. I don't know why they can't just distribute a ROM of the repainted version, maybe for legal reasons or something. But it's kind of a pain in the ass to set up, just a mild pain in the ass. And it also, if you're gonna do it, get a completed save file. Use a completed save file and just do all the remixes, because the remixes are where it's at. They're all like thematic. There's a Philips CDI remix. There's an MS Paint remix. They're very funny, and those are the best part of the game to me. I need to snort again. And so those were cool. And the game did make me laugh quite a bit, but at the end of the day, it is a shit post. It is a very unique, these repainted games have a very unique place in gaming where, like I said while I was streaming it, I don't think they're really meant to be played. So, I don't know. And the fact that, like, it's still Rhythm Heaven Fever, one of the best fucking games ever made. One of the best one of my favorite games of all time. So it's like, it's got that going for it. But overall, the memes almost detract from the experience, like just in terms of actual enjoyability, and it's more of like a comedy game experience. It's like for the novelty. But in that, I feel that it, it loses a few points. I'll give it like an honest 7.5 because it's still working on the framework of Rhythm Heaven Fever. But yeah, not the best. It was funny though. It's perfect like tuber content. So, and some of those remixes genuinely are like artfully done. Did Blob 2, I'm probably gonna end up, I think I'm just gonna give this bluntly just the exact same score as Did Blob 1. And I'm gonna give a recommendation here, but can I like, have I like qualified the yes? Yeah, I have. Yeah, I did it for TF2. I've qualified a recommendation, so I'm going to do that again here. And this is going to be like a dual thing. Don't play the PC version and only play one of the two games. And I'm going to apply this to both of them. This is my genuine advice on Diblob. Because somebody said you did not seem like you enjoyed 2 as much. And that's probably, I attribute that to the fact that I had already played Diblob 1, and the two games are like almost identical. And yes, Diblob 2 adds what would on paper seem to be a significant amount of stuff, but really in the end, like the addition of the 2D segments and a couple new power-ups, some of those power-ups were shitters. Those didn't really add that much. It's just more of the same game. And the quality is like exactly the same. The PC ports are botched. I would say, especially for 2, the PC port was like, whoa. There was specifically, in fact, if this is a review of the PC port of Diblob 2 as it is clearly labeled here, I'm gonna have to bring it down to an 8 because I had to fucking mod this game myself to make it playable. because there was a glitch that is pervasive that happens, I think, in everybody's copy of De Blob 2 on PC, where if you fall into the ink, the sound that plays of De Blob going like continues to play even after you've cleaned off forever. And that just sucks that is like something they never patched. And I know THQ Nordic doesn't exist anymore. They died. So maybe that's why it didn't get patched, but that's still shameful. There was also apparently like there's a little like splash art for each of like the new enemy encounters, and for the final boss of the entire game, the splash art was just missing. It was just like blank on the screen, and I was like, was that intentional? Was that a glitch? It was a glitch. Apparently the files are just missing. So that sucked. And the technical issues, there's also this weird like frame rate issue that happens sometimes where like only De Blob will start going, like the character De Blob will just start going in this weird stuttering frame rate for a little while, and it happens pervasively across both games. And yeah, I just, by the end of De Blob 2, even by the beginning of De Blob 2, I was just like, this is just more of the same game, and I don't see any reason to play this if you've already played De Blob 1. I would say maybe, you know, if you have like the Wii version of De Blob 2, then just skip the first game and just play De Blob 2. This game has great cutscenes. That is like one of the best parts of it. Apparently they were gearing for a TV show release. They were fixing to have a series made, an animated series of De Blob 2, which probably would have been pretty good because the cutscenes are very well done. They look great. I'm gone. I'm back. It was a little blurry. They're funny. They're genuinely funny. I think none of them have any dialogue, but they are very funny. They got a lot of personality. Everything looks amazing and crisp. But they don't save the game. Like they don't salvage the lesser aspects of the game, or just the fact, again, it's not terrible, it's just the fact that it's a lot of the same. And I also think both of these games, what's happening? Hold on. I just like adjusted my webcam's volume. That's not a thing. Both of these games are a little too long. Like I remember even by the end of De Blob 1, I was ready for that shit to be done. I was like, this ain't it, Chief. This should have been a shorter game. And I know that's a weird complaint to have. I know plenty of people will balk at that and be like, you're fucking insane. Longer is always better in terms of games. But I just was sick of it. I just got like bored by the end of both games, and especially De Blob 2 because I already had De Blob 1 under my belt. That being said, all the good parts of De Blob 1 are in De Blob 2. The dynamic music is the coolest part of the game. Painting buildings and hearing all the like unique instrument riffs playing along with the music is always satisfying. So there's that. But I also, any issues I have with this game I have with the previous one, this one still has the time limit issue, but it slightly fixes that because it's like once you beat the main missions of a level, then the timer goes away and you're allowed to just go do the rest of the level as long as you want. I think that's how it works, which is kind of nice, but really doesn't change much because I didn't find myself wanting to do that extra stuff because, again, these games are a little too long and I had already played De Blob 1. So there's my opinions. There's also a couple of bosses, and the bosses are really like weird and underwhelming. Just didn't feel like it was necessary to have bosses in a game like this, or if they wanted bosses, they should have done it better because they were just kind of weird and bad. Something I said a lot of the time when I was playing that was, this would be so much more fun if it had like Mario-esque, like really tight controls, but the controls are just, like they're not terrible, but they're just like floaty and like not quite responsive enough to be like a really satisfying, enjoyable platformer. Okay, Final Doom, the Plutonia experiment. This is a famous WAD pack for Doom 2. Infamously difficult. It's gonna be hard to rank. I'll probably end up giving this one like an 8 as well, honestly. And it's gonna be tough to recommend. The previous 2 Doom games that I played were on Hurt Me Plenty difficulty, which is the game's medium. But I did Final Doom Plutonia on Ultraviolence difficulty because I heard that Ultraviolence is like the way to play Plutonia, and that's like the true test of your metal. Nobody actually plays on Nightmare, so I didn't do Nightmare. I also didn't pistol start. I didn't have fast monsters set on. Just did the standard Ultraviolence, and it was enjoyable, but there are also very much parts of this game that are cock-crushingly difficult. I think Civvy11 did a video on this game, and I agree with what he said, that it kind of peters out by the end in terms of difficulty, and like a lot of the hardest stuff it's going to hit you with is near the beginning of the game. There was one room in particular, I don't remember what level it was, but if you guys watch the streams, you know which one that was, that almost broke me. In fact, some would argue that it did break me. There are some rooms that are just ridiculous, but in the end, it is a very satisfying challenge. It is after Doom and Doom 2 being pretty relatively easy. Doom 2 had some teeth. Doom 1 was kind of a joke, honestly, especially in retrospect after playing Plutonia. It's just nothing. Like Doom, the most difficulty that Doom 1 will hit you with is like a confusing level, like Limbo. I think it's just called Limbo, or like Limbo of the Lost. That's an indie game, I think, actually. But it's very hard, but it's not like total bullshit like all the time. A lot of the times it's just, and the thing that I like about it is that it's interesting combat encounters. Like, clearly the people who made this had a good understanding of Doom's engine and how to make compellingly difficult levels that aren't just throwing, in a sense they are just throwing 10 million enemies at you, but it's not like total bullshit. It's like interestingly designed stuff. I got blurry again. Like, they do a lot of interesting things with teleporters. They did some weird like engine exploit stuff where enemies could just appear without using teleporters at all, that I thought were very fascinating to fight my way through those encounters. They have these weird, they introduced ladders in this game, open quotes ladders, that are just really steep stairs that are basically just a wall that you just zip straight up, which are kind of jank, but interesting. I like that they demonstrate a good understanding of the Doom's engine, or the Doom's engine and Doom's like monsters, and how, as Civvy said, how best to fuck you over with the enemy designs. And there's some cool like gimmick levels too, like the Archvile maze level that plays the bunny music at the end of Doom 1. Apparently there's a music pack for this game that I didn't play, but there's like a MIDI pack that gives it its own unique music or something like that. I could never get any information on this. But I didn't use that. I just used like stock Doom music, and I guess it uses mixtures of Doom and Doom 2's music. It worked for me. Some of the levels music was kind of grating, but overall it was an enjoyable experience, as going into it knowing that it's going to be like CBT, light CBT. Will you play Doom 16 now that you've worked through all these? I gotta do Doom 64, and I gotta do Doom 3 first. I'm intending to do it in order. I don't think I'm gonna do TNT, but maybe at some point I'll do TNT. That would be one that I would do out of order, because I'm not fiending to play any more like classic Doom engine games anytime soon. So how to rate it? I think I would probably just give it an 8, because it's like the frustrating parts definitely detract from it. There are definitely a couple parts where, especially parts where there's just a bunch of enemies really far away, and if you're playing this legitimately with the classic auto aim, not using mouse look at all, there are some parts that just feel frustrating and almost poorly designed where it's like, how am I supposed to defeat these enemies when they're so far away? They're just constantly shooting at me. They're so far away. I have to go way out in the open to get to them. And my auto aim literally won't target them because they are so far away. That's lame to me. And those parts really detracted. And some of the more like CBT rooms, I was like, okay, tone it down, guys. Like, ease off. It doesn't need to be this crazy. Like, there were better ways to do this. Especially some of the parts where there's like chain gunners that get infinitely revived by archviles that are sitting behind a fucking wall and you can't kill the archviles. So yeah, it's tough to decide if I want to recommend this or not, but I'm going to go ahead and say yes, but just yes, knowing that it is going to be challenging. You should definitely play it after Doom and Doom 2 if you're going to go through this series, because you're going to need all that practice and understanding of how the enemies work and stuff. So yes, recommend, but do be warned that it can be frustrating. And it probably will be frustrating at times. Okay, now that's all the ones that I've streamed recently. Now we're hopping back in time to a bunch of ones that I streamed ages ago. I think this is from last year's Halloween season. This is the spooky games from last year. So this is Monster Force. This is a very bad GBA game. I'm probably going to go kind of quick through these. These are less substantial games. This is your typical shovelware. It is a top-down isometric, like beat-em-up shooter type game, where you play as classic. I don't even, what is the term for these characters? Like the werewolf and the vamp and Dracula and Frankenstein and shit. What is the Dark Universe characters? But it's, chat, what is that called? Monsters. Thanks, chat. No, like classic movie monsters. Douchebags. I thought there was like a franchise associated with all those nowadays. Maybe not. But it's a bad game. Universal. They're Universal movie monsters. That's what I'm thinking of. It's bad. It's not terribly difficult if memory serves. Actually, no, I think there's some like challenge levels where you have to go fast that are actually really fucking hard. But it's just not a satisfying game to play. It doesn't have great music. There's really nothing exceptional about it. A lot of it is just like serviceable. Like I think beating this game when I was younger. But when I was streaming it, I was like, no fucking way am I gonna play this entire game. Like, it's just so boring. There's really nothing much to say about it. So let's give it a clear no. And like, it wasn't like the worst thing I've ever played, but it was just bad. Give it like a 3, I guess. Let's give it a 2. How about a nice healthy 2? Okay, watching. We're getting into the whack games, and let me just say up front, it's very hard to rank whack games because a lot of these are like 5-minute long experiences that you can get on like itch.io or some shit. A lot of these are random indie games that I downloaded like 10 years ago. Watching is basically a red light, green light game, but it's like horror themed. You're in this big white hallway that looks like you're ascending to heaven, kind of. And there's this like weird shadowy figure that's hard to make out in the distance, and this sort of like creepy piano music. But it's like it's not your typical. I like this game. I actually like this one. It's not your typical creepy piano music. It's tastefully done, and basically this thing just randomly turns around. I think it literally is random. And you just press space to like make the screen go dark and to freeze that thing in place. And your goal is just to survive for as long as you can while keeping it far away. And I think whenever you're not whenever it's not looking at you and you let go of the space bar, it like moves slowly away from you, but there's no way to win, I'm pretty sure. It's a compelling little experience, but it's something that you play for like 5 minutes and then you're like, okay, I'm done. And it gets genuinely kind of tense and scary when it gets close to you, inevitably. It has like kind of a spooky face, but I like the look of this game because it's not like your typical like goofy ass, like dumbass horror tropes. It's just got a nice little creepy vibe to it, and I like that. And I've often said that with whack games, I almost want to make like a compilation of them, or like the legality of this would probably be very, very bad all over the place. But if I could make like a humble bundle that was like a bunch of like the coolest whack games and like put them together in like one bundle, this would be one of the ones that makes it into there. Spoiler alert, these two would also go in there, I think. And this one. Just short little experiences, but you gotta remember that they are pretty insubstantial, and there's almost no reason to seek this game out and play it, because finding it and downloading it and maybe even getting it working, I don't know, is maybe going to be too much of a pain in the ass to actually justify playing it. When are you playing Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights? What did I give that game? What did I rate that? Because I did play that. Now I'm curious. Hold on. I gave that a 2. I gave that a 2 out of 10. So, there you go. I already did. Me and my friend Riley did an entire playthrough of that game. And it was bad. And I heard that game mentioned in the H-Bomber guy, Tommy Tallarico Roblox oof video, where apparently Tommy Tallarico or his company did music for the game. I would not assume after watching that video that Tommy Tallarico did the music for that game, because he would appear to be a lying fuck. So anyway, yeah, that's my Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights. It was bad. It was not fun. We thought it would be like funny, but it wasn't even really that funny. Okay. So watching, I would recommend, but just again, keep it in mind that it is a very short experience. It's not very substantial, but what is there is good. And ranking these is so hard. Like, giving these a number grade. I'm just gonna give it, like, I enjoyed it enough. It's like a 7. Sure. Like, sure. I'm not biased. Didn't Tommy Tallarico create Scooby-Doo? I think, yeah, he did do that. Yeah, that's true. I commented, I went to, like, if you go to Tommy Tallarico's old videos, like his MTV Cribs video, and you comment on them, your comment just gets deleted. Fun fact. I did that because I commented, I went to that video and I was like, there's no way that nobody has commented since the H-Bomber guy video has been made. Is he just deleting all the comments? And then my comment got deleted. It's not that comments are disabled, they're getting manually deleted. So, there's a little fun fact for you. Thanks, Tommy. Great guy. Wow. Anyway, I'm scared. This was bad. This is a very iconic sort of like creepypasta indie game. I didn't really find it that enjoyable. It's got this iconic little like creepy face in it. I really didn't find almost anything to enjoy about this, except there was a kind of neat part where at the end the game like gives you a noose and you have to kill yourself to exit the game. That was kind of creepy, and like it was at least unique. It was not necessarily a tactfully done like spooky moment, but it was unique. That's all I would really give this game. Otherwise, I really struggle to even remember anything else about it. It just wasn't very scary, and it just wasn't very fun or compelling, and the game looked ugly. Yeah, there's apparently like a revamped version of the game that is on Steam that I've heard is way better. But this is the original classic freeware edition. It was just bad. It was just bad. So I'll give it a 1.5, and the 0.5 is the noose part that was like mildly cool. Thank you for the raid. Oh, thank you, welcome raiders. The raid song. Okay, now they've left. No, I would not recommend I'm Scared. Welcome to the most boring stream of all time. Why would you raid this? No, but thank you, I guess. The migration. This was a pretty cool one. The dev of this game actually got in contact with me after I played it and said, hey, thanks for playing my game. Thanks for being so, like, nice to it, because I quite enjoy this one. And I really hate to say it, but he sent me a Steam key for his latest game, and I booted it up and played it a little bit, and I was like, I'm not streaming this. Like, it's just kind of boring. It was just kind of like a boring walking simulator. The migration is also a walking simulator, but there's a lot of things that I think set this game apart from other walking sims. My favorite part about this game is the movement, which feels weird to say about a game where you just move around, like you just walk, basically. I think there's a jump button. It's got this very dreamlike feel to it. And this is not necessarily a spooky horror game like the other ones that I've been talking about recently. It does have a creepy vibe, but it's more of like an existential, like, Welcome to Night Vale creepy vibe, rather than like, maybe not even, like, Welcome to Night Vale doesn't really... It reminds me of a very specific part of Welcome to Night Vale. But yeah, I think if you want to find this, look up like Connor Ambient Mix The Migration, I think is like a good way to search for it. It's very interesting. It's another short experience, and it almost feels spiritual. It's like you're drifting, you move very fast, and there's like a momentum to how you move that makes it feel very dreamlike. Like, instead of having like footstep sound effects and you're like slowly trudging along, you kind of like glide around, and it just feels very cool. And that's probably my favorite aspect of the game. And then besides that, you're just walking around like what would appear to be like an alien planet or something. It kind of reminds me of Mirror Moon, if any of you have ever played that game, like just a little bit. And you sort of explore around this weird, I guess it's like a liminal type planet. Liminal is a word that I think applies here. And there's like, you activate a big machine and then something happens that's kind of cool, and then it ends. And that's it. And like cool music plays. It's a neat little, again, like 5-minute long, why am I saying no? Walking simulator experience that has unique things to other walking sims that I think make it worth checking out. Frankly, it's almost a little too short, and I wish there was more to it. But what is there is nice. Really nice. I'll also give this one like a 7. I feel like 7's going to be my default for like these whack games that are basically cool. Like, I'm probably going to give Offline a 7 too. I always want to pronounce this one like Offine, because the L is weird. I don't even know what's up with that L. Must be something from a different language or something. Are you interested in playing Doki Doki Literature Club? No, not really. I know all the things. I know all the gimmicks about what happens in that game. But I do have more interest in playing the original Doki Doki Panic. I think that would be fun. So maybe I'll check that out someday. So Offline, this was a very cool game. It's like a train game. It's like a spooky train. You're like in this weird train car, and you have a bunch of like panels of like buttons and levers and stuff in front of you. And when you fiddle with them, it like makes the car go forward, makes it go back in this like endless tunnel, and makes a bunch of weird, surreal, trippy, weird looking effects show up in front of you. really hard to describe, but it's very cool. This would be one that it would definitely go into my like whack games like party pack or whatever. Very, very cool. Again, it's like a 5-minute experience that you just mess around with for a bit. I don't think there's any ending to it. Sometimes you can do this thing, I think, where like it appears that there's a train coming at you and like the light like blares in your eyes and then it goes like, and then I think it crashes, but then it just resets you back to the state that you start the game in. I don't know if I would consider that an ending to the game, but it's a cool spooky experience that has a unique vibe, sort of hellish, similar to Watching, both games that take place in like an infinite tunnel. Yes, I will play the beginner's guide at some point. That's a game that I'm gonna have to be feeling real melancholy to play, I think. I'll have to be in a real weird mood to stream that one because that is a heavy game. But it'd probably be a one-off. So Offline, very cool. Would recommend, I guess. This feels like a cop-out, but I'm gonna give it a 7. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay, this one I'm not gonna give a 7 because I thought this one was bad. This is Bleak Shore. It was, and this one has an excuse to be bad because it is a game jam game. This is, and to those of you who don't know, game jams are when developers come together to work on, they don't necessarily come together, but frequently they're like group things. They develop a game in a set period of time. It's like speedrunning making a game, basically. And sometimes they have a topic that is suggested to them, like they're not allowed to decide on what the topic is, and then you have to make a game in its entirety in like 2 days, or whatever. Game Jam is also what you spread out on Game Toast. I would not recommend Bleak Shore. It was not very fun. This is your typical sort of like, I feel like this is now a pretty common thing, like PS1 looking ass, pixel art, 3D walking simulator. It was kind of neat for like 2 seconds, like it has a cool vibe, but the game just doesn't go anywhere. Clearly, because of game jamming, it didn't have enough time to make anything like super substantial. Wasn't Hollow Knight originally a game jam? Yes. Hungry Knight. I actually played that on stream and reviewed it because it was a Flash game. That's on my Flash game reviews streams, which are part of the same playlist as the review streams. If you go to the Fruit Salad channel, there's a game review streams playlist, and the Flash game reviews are on there. Hungry Knight is almost nothing like Hollow Knight, though. It's got a few similar elements, and like the main character animation is almost verbatim the same. But yeah, there's really not a lot to this game. It had an interesting thing where there's a bunch of trees, and sometimes a tree will like turn into a silhouette of like a human figure and then turn back into a tree, and it's one of those things that like sometimes just happens out of the corner of your eye and is a little vaguely spooky. That was the coolest part of the game. This game tried to cover like themes of like gender dysphoria and like transness and stuff, and it felt like a very shallow exploration of those things. And I remember it had like kind of a goofy ending that didn't really feel impactful or anything. It was like you're finding a bunch of items scattered around this like island, and then at the end you find the person who dropped all the items, and they're like, oh, there was a hole in my bag, haha, and it was I was just dropping all these things. I didn't actually get murdered or whatever, because you're kind of suspecting that something dark happened to them because it's like a vaguely spooky game. That's really all there was to it. I feel like I've essentially described the entire game. Again, I don't blame this game for being bad, because it was a game jam game. Maybe they could have, taken a lot of times game jam games. Nuclear Throne is another great example of a game that was born from a game jam. Sometimes developers take what is, an idea that has potential, and then they develop a full game out of it, outside the constraints of being a game jam. Maybe this could have done better with that, but I don't know. I don't know about that. it ended with the creator telling his wife to watch her back, right? No, that's this game, which was also bad, but wasn't a Game Jam game. Home doesn't have an excuse. So Bleak Shore, I'd give this like a 2. Like it looked kind of cool. It had kind of cool audio design, and the tree thing was kind of cool. But all of those were like so vaguely, I don't know, maybe a 2.5. Let's keep it at a 2. Because otherwise it just wasn't enjoyable in the slightest. Okay, level 2, the Virus Master. This one was fucking awesome. I think level 2 is the name of a band. Before you ask, like, what is level 1, the Virus Master? Or, like, what is the level 1 game? I think level 2 is the name of the band or, like, an album or something. This is a game that is set to music. There's, like, 2 songs by this, like, metal band. And it's very, very cool. It's got, like, crazy imagery. It's basically a bullet hell shooter. Where you play as this little, like, flying guy and you shoot a gun. And the object is to get a good score while going through this sort of playable music video where didn't King Gizzard do a similar thing? I might have to check that out. I've never heard of that, but sounds like something they would do. It was very cool. I think this is a very underrated game because it was genuinely quite fun, and it had neat visuals. I love dynamic music, and this did dynamic music really well. The music is not necessarily the sort of thing that I would typically listen to, but when it's done this well and when it's so compelling and framed so interestingly, you can't help but get into something like this. I think I would give this a 7.5. The one thing was, it's like there's 4 segments of the game. There's 2 songs, but there's like 4 segments of the game that you get graded on. And in order to unlock the final boss, you have to get an S rank on like 2 out of the 4 segments or something like that. And it's not necessarily terribly difficult to do. I did it on my second go through the game. But the final boss encounter was really lame and bad. It was like way too easy and basic. And there was no music to the final boss, which I found to be very disappointing. That's my one little criticism of it. Otherwise, it's also just, you know, another one of these little bite-sized games. I don't think there's necessarily something wrong with a game being short. I'm going to give this an 8. As I'm talking about this, I'm thinking, yeah, that's an 8. It's like it's not exactly a masterpiece. Some of the faces look kind of derpy in it. But overall, it's very imaginative, cool, unique. It's great. Would recommend. Home. This is a really bad game. I'm sorry to say. This is what you would call indie pixel shit. A lot of people have sort of a predisposition of dislike towards indie games, and I feel like this is one of those games where that dislike is kind of deserved. It's pixel art, but the pixel art doesn't really look good. It has these vaguely interesting parts where, like, when you go through... That was this game, right? Where you go through a door, and it has, like, a 3D part where there's an animation of, like, going down a hallway or something. It really was very basic, and the story was very vague, and I didn't even really understand what was happening a lot of the time. Maybe I'm just stupid. I have been informed by certain correspondents that I am a dumbass, but I found it kind of hard to parse, but not in an interesting, compelling way. It just felt kind of sloppy and bad. It's very slow-paced. It was not really scary at all. And yes, as somebody noted earlier, this is the one where the creator of the game credits his wife, telling her to watch her back. And I think the game is about killing your spouse. So just take that for what you will. That's a very creepy and weird thing to do. Definitely don't do that in your game. Why would I say yes? It was very bad. And just, I don't know. It was just like an awkward, bad, boring game. It was like functional. like it, and I felt like there might have been like branching paths too. Like there might have been like different endings that you can get, but it's one of those games where when you're playing through it, like once you're done with it, you're like, I don't want to play that again. Fuck that. So maybe there's more compelling stuff that you can find if you go like down the right route, because the route that I did sure as hell wasn't worth it. So I think we're giving it a lot of the same like numbers today. A lot of sevens, a lot of twos, but give this one like a, I don't know. Why would I not give this one just a 1? It was really bad, honestly. Like I struggle to think of anything I liked about this game. I'm torn between watching the stream and watching The Princess Bride. Definitely watch The Princess Bride. That's a banger movie. That is an awesome, awesome movie. You know, this is a total side tangent, but that movie has this whole framing device where it's being told. It's like the plot of The Princess Bride is being told. It's a bedtime story where there's like this old man who's reading his kid or like his grandson or something the story. And in the book, which I was read by my own mom when I was a kid, the book has this framing device where it says, oh, you know, this is an adaptation of an old story where we've made some edits and cut out some of the like boring parts and stuff like that. And I always believed that when I was a kid. But at one point, we like read the inside cover of the book or something. Because there's certain parts of the books where they're like, oh, the one part I remember in particular is like, they skip an entire chapter that's all about like packing their belongings before like moving somewhere. And eventually we like read the inside cover of the book and it said like, yeah, this is not actually an adaptation. It's not actually, no edits were made. This is the original story in its entirety. That's just a framing device. And that like, I felt my brain wrinkle as a child when I saw that. I was like, he lied? Like, what? What do you mean it's not real? It blew my mind. It was insane to realize that, because I was totally taken in by it. Classic. The movie's a classic, though. One of the best examples of camp. You know, not camping, but like when people say something is campy, that is like the perfect campy movie. It's brilliant. Anyway. Cardiac, this was a kind of cool, this is a pretty mid whack game. This is like if, what is that game, Carrion? This is like if Carrion was a walking simulator, like an artsy walking simulator. Mostly for worse, I feel like. You play as like this pulsating heart thing, and you like send out these tendrils of like flesh to like grapple onto the walls in order to move. The grappling doesn't really feel terribly satisfying, and overall, like, it looks cool. There's like some cool like artsy stuff. It definitely gave me like uncomfortable feelings in a way that felt intentional. Because I hate thinking about like my organs and like my heart and stuff whenever I see like people's like hearts get ripped out in a movie or whatever. I'm always like, oh, like I can't stand that. But this gave me like just the right amount of like horror game discomfort thinking about my own internal organs. It was cool in that regard. There were a couple of basic puzzles, but a lot of the time it was just kind of frustrating, like slow grappling mechanics that I didn't really care for. The game was a very slowly paced experience, sometimes to the point where it almost just got boring. But not quite. That would be, as long as we're foreshadowing, that would be the Night Journey. That's a painfully slow game. So, yeah, Cardiac, kind of a mixed experience. I'd maybe give this one like a 5.5. It was cool. And I think I'm right on the fence about recommending this one, but I don't think I would. It didn't quite have enough to keep me going, enjoying the entire thing fully, but there were cool parts of it. It's definitely it's not a complete waste of time. Okay. Night of the Consumers. This was a very disappointing game. It looked promising, but it was just so annoying. It's a game where it's another one of those like PS1 styled indie horror games, although it's a little more focused on, it's like comedy horror, but it kind of falls flat. It didn't really make me laugh that much, and it didn't scare me. It's supposed to be like you're working at a retail store or at a supermarket or whatever. I guess a superstore, right, is what they call it. You're working at Safeway or Fred Meyer or whatever the fuck, and all the customers are like horrifying, and they like jump scare you by going, "Excuse me," and they request that you get sent. They request certain items, and you have to run to that specific part of the store and get them the thing and bring it to them in time, or else your manager will like jump scare you. And it just, none of it was very effective or scary, and the gameplay itself was just very frustrating. I found it to be incredibly difficult. Maybe I just sucked at it. There was this whole mechanic where you can like hide in the break room, which was kind of funny, but I never actually found a time to like do that. It was just rough. It was fun to watch, sure. Like maybe it was fun to watch, but it was not fun to play. I didn't enjoy it at all. Would not recommend. The game also just looks very ugly and makes you feel like you want to take a shower, but not in the like compelling way that a lot of horror things do that. It just felt nasty. I think I would give this like, I don't know, like a 3, maybe. It wasn't very good. What? What? Bella keeps sticking her face out the door and like puffing out her cheeks at me. Leave me alone. I'm trying to review shit ass games here. Come on.
It's an apology.
Okay. I don't actually mind. It's very cute, babe. I'm like, what do you want? Do you want food? Are you good? Okay. Now we've got... Oh, these two games I don't really remember much about. Please and Please Follow. This is a weird series. Let her review them based off the title alone. These were both basically cool. They were more or less cool, but they didn't leave a huge impression on me, especially the first one. The first one was very short, and to the point where it felt like if it had anything to say, it didn't have enough time to say it. Both of them have this sort of like industrial vibe to them, like it feels like they're supposed to be sort of about the despair of like working in industry and sort of like losing your soul to work. But they both felt pretty vague. Please Follow was definitely cooler, and Please Follow, like, the original Please felt like it was like that industrial theme. Whereas Please Follow got a little more into like Lovecraftian like horror type stuff. I remember there were these parts where you're like picking up these weird little slugs and like feeding them into a this like mouth machine that like sucks them up, and a bunch of other weird things. Please Follow definitely had a lot more like structured puzzles, and I think was a cooler experience overall. The original Please was like a pretty mid experience overall. It was... It had this weird style. I wouldn't call it quite like PS1 looking, but it had that similar sort of like low poly look to it. They both have that style where when you're looking around, the textures on things sort of like warp slightly, which almost makes me feel a little like dizzy. I remember Please having cool audio design at the very least. Like there's a part where you're like walking past a bunch of doors and you can like hear all sorts of weird shit. Like you can hear crying from inside one of the doors and stuff like that. That was kind of cool. It was serviceable. It's a serviceable, spooky game, but nothing to write home about. I don't think I would recommend it. I don't think I would recommend either of these, but I'm really on the fence about it. And yes, sometimes I will recommend a game that is a 6, and sometimes I won't. That's why there's a different column for recommendation. Because if it was just like, oh, you know, the number barrier just directly corresponds to a recommendation, then I wouldn't even have the recommendation column. But it definitely like right on the cusp of getting a recommendation, but it just wasn't quite cool enough. And I remember that the ending of it I was just confused and just felt like, why? I don't know. I just remember being confused and not really understanding what was going on when that game ended. I remember it like ended on a fade out, basically. And chat, remind me, if anybody's played Please Follow, is Please Follow the one that, spoiler alert, I guess, where at the end you like wake up in a hospital bed? Am I remembering that right? I think that's a thing, correct? That was kind of cool. And that's, you know, oh, it was all a dream. Oh, you were in a coma. That's a pretty, like, that's a trope. But, it's a tired trope. But that felt kind of cool. Please Follow is maggots and you wake up in a hospital. Yeah. It's not all a dream. Okay. That's kind of the vibe I got from it. It's a war hospital. Okay. I definitely did not parse that from playing through the game. It definitely felt like a nightmare that you woke up from. So, yeah. Please Follow was also cool. I would definitely rank it higher. If I could do like a 6.2, I would. But I'm really trying to limit myself to doing at most 0.5s. Because if we get down into like those nitty-gritty decimals, we could do that all day. We could adjust these all day. So yeah, when I say mid, I actually mean medium. Like people nowadays, like when I was watching the Game Awards, all the YouTube chat was like, Elden mid, god of mid. And it's like, no, I actually mean it's like medium. Like I don't mean that it's bad. Whatever. Maybe I just shouldn't say it because it's one of those terms like woke that's just completely lost its actual meaning through misuse. Sanguine Sanctum, I think honestly this is going to sound dumb and maybe this is unfair, but maybe the reason why I'm not recommending Please Follow is because I feel that Sanguine Sanctum is almost just a cooler version of that game. Sanguine Sanctum was shockingly long. It was actually a pretty substantial, like 40 minutes to an hour game, I think. And this one just had a lot of cool, spooky imagery. It had a really cool visual style, a lot of great, like really inventive, creative visuals, to the point where I can't even go into all of them. If you want to check it out, just watch the stream, I guess. But I think I would recommend this one. And it has some cool, like, meta stuff. I forget exactly what even, like, it's like when you beat the game, you find, like, there's, like, cheat codes that do, like, unique things. I don't even really remember, but I remember it being quite cool and quite absorbing. Maybe I should, like, look at the VOD. Whatever. It's fine. We don't need to do that. It was a cool game, and it had some neat meta stuff. It had some interesting puzzles that were unique, that didn't just feel like a single, like, in a room contained puzzles. It was like it required like a little bit broader thinking. And that was neat. It was a cool game. So would recommend. It was like a solid 7, I think. We're just gonna have a nice little 6.57 gradient here, and it is not in the same series. I don't think it's made by the same person as Please and Please Follow, but I would definitely say it's a similar type of game. So yeah, would recommend. It's kind of cool. If you're into it, it could also be considered like a walking simulator. I think like the actual gameplay point is that you're like feeding blood to this huge like blob of blood in the center of like the hub of all the worlds. It's really weird, but a surprisingly substantial and interesting game for what would appear to just be random indie horror trash at a glance. Okay, The Night Journey. This was a tremendously fucking disappointing, boring piece of shit. I went into this thinking, oh, this is going to be a cool, slow, meditative experience. It's like a black and white game with this really interesting visual filter over it, and really weird use of, like, sometimes the game will, like, superimpose real-life, like, footage over the game in sort of an interesting way, but anything interesting or compelling that this game has to do is completely and utterly destroyed. This is one of the very rare instances of a game that is just completely ruined by one aspect of it, and that is the fact that you move painfully slowly. And like I went into it ready to be patient, ready to be like meditative and like take my time with things, and I'm not trying to be super goal oriented, we're just trying to pick up on the vibe. But you just I to the point where I thought that my game was like glitched out, and I was like, is something wrong with my copy of The Night Journey? Do I need to like go into the like into the files and like edit the movement speed to make it actually work? But I think that is how fast you're actually supposed to move. It is shocking how slowly you move, and it just ruins the game because it takes forever to fucking get anywhere. And then sometimes it's like you're going around this like nighttime like mountain valley area, and it looks cool. Visually it looks cool. There's neat visual filters over it. And then you find these things where there's like a mechanic where you like take a deep breath or something, and it makes certain objects, like there's like dilapidated houses or there's like at least one house that's like all ruined, and then you breathe deeply and then it like comes back to life, and then you go into the door, and then it plays this, you like have to hold W while you go down this big long hallway, and like weird FMV scenes play in front of you. And that was like vaguely interesting, but then sometimes the game will just warp you across the entire fucking map. And with the fact that you move so slowly, it's like, well, there's half an hour of my life wasted, because now I need to make my way back if I want to see what the fuck was up with that, or if I want to explore around that area that I was in. And it was just super lame. It either should have let you move way fucking faster. Migration comes to mind. That's a game that it's a walking sim that just lets you move quickly, and I think it works just fine. And comes across very surreal and dreamlike. But Night Journey either should have compressed all the things that you can do into a tiny, tiny area compared to how big it is as it stands, or it should have just let you move quickly. Should have just let you fucking move quickly. And apparently this was like an award-winning game, and I honestly, sincerely don't know what the fuck the people who gave it those awards were on. The crack. Like, they were on crack. No, I would not recommend it. It had some interesting qualities, but it was just ruined by how slowly you move. Give it like a 2.5, I think. I'm going to do 2.5. Because there were interesting parts of it, but it was just so painful to play. Okay. I'm going to try to at least get up to Jazzpunk here. I might try to also plow through these Genesis games. Maybe not, though. We really did not make much progress here today. But whatever. Typically, I try to do, like, a page, like, one full, like, screen scroll of games. Here, we did not even come close. This is the amount of games I reviewed, plus, like, Wario Land 4, Rhythm Heaven Repainted, and the other one, I don't even remember. Oh, Plutonia. So we really did not get much done today, but whatever. Eventually, like, I've still got there's this chasm of just random-ass games, some cool ones, like Rocket Knight, we got Jazzpunk, we got PT, XO1 was cool, but we got a lot of just random bullshit ones like Pico games and shit. Zapper One Wicked Cricket. But then finally, when we get down to here, Super Galaxy Squadron, that's when the bullet hells start. I will very much enjoy rating the bullet hells. And then we'll get to the series, which I think will be very fun to review. I think probably the FromSoft games will take an entire stream up to themselves, because I just have so much I feel I want to say about those games. But we'll get there when we get there. It was a slow day today, but whatever. I like talking about games. It's not about the goal, it's about the journey. It's just not about the night journey, because the night journey sucks ass. Okay, Unreal PT. This is a remake of PT, which is the famous playable teaser for Silent Hills, which was a canceled Konami game. This was the collaborative effort between Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro. So you got to remember that when I'm rating this, I'm rating the Unreal Engine remake of it, because PT was taken off of the PS4 store. It's kind of like Flappy Bird, where now you can go online and buy a PS4 that has PT on it, but you can't actually buy PT. Because it was, I mean, you can never buy it because it was free, but you know what I mean. You can't download it anymore. So somebody took it upon themselves to remake PT in the Unreal Engine, and for whatever reason remove the periods from PT. I don't know why. It's very cool. PT itself is a fascinating game. I think this, where many of these types of games, like where Home failed, PT succeeds with flying colors in being an interesting story, spooky, centered around murdering your family. I'm pretty sure. It's definitely what a lot of like shitty indie horror type things would love to be. They would love to be the same quality as PT. It's very cool. It's very esoteric. There's some parts of it where there are puzzles that feel almost like an ARG, where it's like, how the fuck are you supposed to figure out that you're supposed to do this without big collaborative effort, or without just data mining the fucking game? Would recommend, but if you have like a friend that has PT on a PS4, just play that version, because it's objectively better. I'm pretty sure Unreal PT, they might have come across some like legal issues or something, because to me it really seems like they just straight up ripped the textures and sprites and shit straight out of the original PT and just put them in Unreal Engine. I don't know to what degree that was done. You can correct me if I'm wrong here, but that's how it feels. It just feels like the assets were just directly taken. So it almost feels like there's two parts of this review. There's reviewing PT itself, and then there's reviewing Unreal PT. Which Unreal PT, the main thing that it's missing a couple of things. The main thing is that it does not end in a trailer for Silent Hills. Because of course that would be quite litigious. That would be a bad. You don't want to do that. But PT itself is very cool. It has a few really, really cool ideas. Just the fact that you're going through like the looping hallway over and over again with like vague differences or really crazy differences sometimes is very cool. The way the narrative is delivered, it really sends shivers down your spine. It is very authentically spooky, without resorting to jump scares or gore. Although there are jump scares here and there. One of the coolest things about PT is the fact that while you are playing it, there is constantly the 3D model of like the main like spooky antagonist ghost in the game is constantly floating behind you the entire time you're playing it. No matter what. I guess maybe sometimes when you glimpse it out in the open, maybe it's not behind you, but and it to the point where like I don't know if you ever actually see it. Like, you can't, like, turn around so quickly that you see it or whatever. But, it's just there, and the whole game has that unsettling feeling of like being watched and being followed, and all the little like sneak glimpses, like you can glimpse the ghost through the window, you can glimpse it like up on the railing looking down at you sometimes. Very cool. Very sort of unique antagonist idea. It's a very like artsy fartsy game, but it's very cool, very well done, and the Unreal version of it is pretty much a direct adaptation with just a few tiny things missing. So I don't know, I'd give this like an 8.5. Like one of the best demos, one of the best teasers for a game of all time, I think. And the Unreal version, you know, I would say actually, yeah, the Unreal version, I'm gonna dock it down a single half a point, I guess. But is a very cool spooky game, one of the cooler horror games. Okay, and I think we're gonna finish with Jazzpunk. Usually these review streams, I like to keep them kind of short because again, just talking constantly, I get kind of out of breath and I need a break. So Jazzpunk is a cool game. This is a comedy game. I guess you would call it a comedy walking simulator. Because it's a first-person game, you don't really do... You do solve, like, puzzles, I guess, and, like, complete objectives, but they're very basic. It is mostly there to make you chuckle. And it is, genuinely funny. I think there are plenty of parts of it that really genuinely make me laugh. When I was streaming it, it was kind of like I've already played it before, so a lot of the jokes will be less funny the second time through, but even then there were parts that still made me laugh. And it's just got a very cool style. I think the practice of taking the word punk and adding it to the end of a word has become kind of overdone, but this was released around the time when that was not super overdone, so I give it a pass. It's a funny game with a genuinely sort of cool aesthetic, this kind of like retro 50s and 60s kind of vibe, like spy movie vibe to it. It's got a cool soundtrack, really cool vibes. It's an Adult Swim game, which I think just means they like produced it. You know, they didn't actually, I don't know. Is there an Adult Swim team that was like directly involved? Probably not. But maybe, I don't know. I truly don't know, actually. And then the director's cut part of it, I don't even really know what that adds. Maybe there's just like a few extra added things here and there. But there was also the Flavor Nexus DLC, which it was like there's an extra chapter at one point where you go into a supermarket and there's a bunch of jokes in the supermarket. That DLC is like lame, honestly. Not lame, but it was just, there was so little to it that I honestly, and this is a Joseph Anderson take. I've raked Joseph Anderson over the coals about him being like, oh, this is not enough content to constitute having an entire DLC. But that was talking about Ashes of Ariandel for Dark Souls 3, which I think is a great DLC with fucking plenty of content. It's not super long, but it's plenty. Flavor Nexus, like, how much did this cost? Let me check. It was $3, and I know that doesn't seem like much, but the amount of content that you got for the Flavor Nexus DLC, it was like, just fucking put it in the game. Like, just update the game and add this extra level to it if you want to do that so badly. Don't make it paid DLC. Like, that just felt like a super weird move, honestly. And you guys know that I'm not really the kind of guy to complain about this sort of thing. It's only $3, like, who cares? Like, it's basically just like, oh, I want to support the developers, and I get this tiny little extra chapter when I'm replaying this game, I guess. But it was really an anemic amount of content. to be paid DLC at all, and they probably should have just added it as a free update to the game. But this is a very funny game. I would definitely recommend this. It's it's not like high art, but it doesn't need to be. I think comedies sort of stand in a weird place in a lot of media because they don't need to really say anything about life or about media or anything. They just need to be funny, and I think this one is successfully funny. And that's the long and short of it. Giving it a number. A last-ditch effort to fund a potential sequel, which I guess never happened. Is that confirmed? That would be weird. That's definitely a weird last-ditch effort. They did add. There's a model that has a censored. Just a guess. Okay. There's a censored penis in the Flavor Nexus DLC, which I think actually is also a selectable skin in like Wedding Quake or something. And if you no clip, you can just see an uncensored penis in this game. So it's basically a 10 out of 10. I think I would give Jazzpunk an 8.5. It's cool and funny and enjoyable. It's got a unique style and personality. It's got cool music. Makes me laugh. Good game. And I think that's going to be it. Next time we will start off. I really didn't want to start off the next stream with a bunch of shit Genesis games, but I guess we're going to start off next stream with a bunch of shit Genesis games and a couple of good ones. Stimpy's Invention was kind of cool, and Rocket Knight Adventures was kind of cool. The rest of these I could do without. So I guess look forward to that. We'll have some cool games. Downwell was cool, and then, honestly, we got more like whack games. Next stream's going to be a lot like this one, where there's going to be some games that I honestly barely remember, but will take a stupid amount of time on, apparently. And then once we get through all those, then we got some real games: Vampire Survivors, 20 Minutes Till Dawn, Bastion, Katana Zero Closure, Little Inferno, Goose Game. And then just a couple more whack games, and then we get to the good shit. Like the really good shit. With the series that are down here. So I guess look forward to that. Shall we raid somebody? I think let's raid somebody. And I always say that I'm going to try to... that I'm going to try to, like, do these streams more often, but I never actually end up doing that. So don't hold your breath, but I want to. I want to complete it. I want to get caught up with the game, or with the game list, so that then I can just do a little review stream of games that are actually fresh in my mind every once in a while, rather than doing these, like, feeling like I'm obligated to, like, crank through the list. I did think that this whole reviewing all the games that I streamed was going to take a lot less time than it ended up taking. Partially because I started this series ages ago and have played tons of games since starting it, making the list longer. So, let's just go raid Mike, I think. I've been doing the, like, raid a person with, like, one viewer thing recently. It's kind of a cruel gift raiding somebody with, like, one viewer, because they get that little burst of serotonin of, like, oh, I got raided and there's, like, a bunch of people here, and then everybody leaves. And then they're just like, oh, and I kind of feel bad. So we're just going to go raid Mike for now. He's playing the new Splatoon content. So go show him some cum. And hope you guys got a kick out of this. Hope it was a nice, relaxing experience. If you're listening to this podcast style, now is the time to switch over to cock porn.